righteous capacity in our mind. And like Denny said, he wants us to be able to differentiate between good and bad. We're just gonna go against some gifts from God, and this doesn't pertain from wisdom, but this is gifts from God. King Solomon. King Solomon was the wisest person in the Bible, and probably up to date, with just a couple sentences. Does anybody here not know about King Solomon?
Solomon.
Like my favorite stories were like the moms, they're fighting because of the baby, and then that's King Solomon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the moms is like crying, and the other one has the baby, and then he grabs the baby by the leg, and he's trying to kill the baby, and the real mom screams, no, 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 just give it to her. And then he notices who the real mom is.
Exactly. Because he wasn't just smart, but he knew exactly how righteous people outside of him should act. And since he saw the mother really wanted the best for his son, he knew that she was willing to take any opportunity of ever seeing her son again because she loved the child. Strength. Judge Samson. A lot of people don't know Samson was a judge, but he was a son. He was a judge. And Samson, he wasn't a huge giant. He was probably, a little bit buffer than me, right? A lot more buffer than me. But he wasn't like a meathead. He didn't have like arms like this. No, all his strength came directly from God. And any of the times Samson got in a fight, the word says that God breathed the spirit in him. Because his strength was straight from God. His gift from God. And I just want to share something interesting that I think is interesting. Samson, when he destroyed the pillars and he went like this, that exact move is actually an Olympic move. There's a sport called strongman, and it's the strongest people on earth. And even the strongest people on earth can only hold that position for minutes. But Samson, he destroyed everything, and that was with his last strength. That was with the little strength that God returned to him.
Mm-hmm.
Just to show how strong Samson was, right? Because Samson would but he's stronger than any of the strongmen now. And these strongmen can pull airplanes, military airplanes. Just to give you some size comparison. And we have book smart. Joseph. Joseph he was brilliant. He was a brilliant architecture. He was responsible for all of the Egyptian structures in his day. He built the silos. He built stalls for Egyptian kings. And he was so smart that he was rewarded the second place of Egypt. It wasn't the Pharaoh. It was the second place of Egypt. And then we have a stutterer who returns to preacher. And this is more specific because if you're lacking in something, God's going to give you that gift. Moses was a stutterer. So he would be like, God, I can't. That's how he was. He was a stutterer. And that's why one of the reasons God got pissed at him was because he told God, he was like, I can't do it. And then God told him, who made man's mouth? Who made the blind? Who made the deaf? Basically saying, if I made man's mouth, I can cure you. And he did. Eventually, when Moses stopped letting go of his fear and he lived fully in faith and accepted the gift from God, he was able to talk better than anybody else. He was able to preach. He was able to be a prophet. And then we just have flat out talent. King David. David made hundreds of songs for God.
Mm-hmm.
And David was a brilliant king. He was probably not as smart as Solomon, but he was really smart. He was really wise. And he was just a great leader.
Mm-hmm.
And that talent came from God. And only God. And then we have the wives who consult us. This is mainly our parents, our pastors, people even out in the streets who are preaching. These are people who already are wise. People who can be less wise, people who are on the same level of wise, and people who are obviously wiser than us. Proverbs 1:8-9. My child, listen when your father corrects you. Don't neglect your mother's instruction. What you learn from them will crown you with grace and be a chain of honor around your neck. The first source of wisdom that you will ever get from the beginning of birth will be from your parents. So listen to them. Job 12:12. Is not wisdom found among the aged? Does not long life bring understanding? This is for older people, grandparents, and even if the grandparent isn't by your blood, they're still wise because they've lived experience, and especially if they're people from faith, they know exactly how to live in faith. We're mostly comprised of my family, but from your family, Hannah, you said you have a grandma from, how old is she?
94.
Wow. And she's smart, right? She's wise. Because people live longer, have better experiences. And especially if they're people from faith, like I said, they know how to live in God's path. And they'll steer you in the right direction. Proverbs 8:2. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his. To even start wanting to be wise, you have to shut your mouth. You have to open your ears. You have to bite your tongue if you have to. But you have to be willing to hear and listen, even if you don't like what is being spoken to you. Don't use the sharpness of your tongue against the people who taught you how to speak. But being wise isn't exactly being better. So don't think just because you know how to live righteously, don't think just because you know about the presence of God, because you're in the presence of God, that you're going to be better than your fellow brethren, that you're going to be better than your fellow Christians who probably don't have the talent. Proverbs 3:7. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. Basically saying, don't be cocky. Don't be full of yourself. Don't start rising up and recognizing that you're rising up. Don't start recognizing that you're getting on higher places, getting in a higher atmosphere of mind capacity, and start shaming other people. Word of God says that a gentle word embraces others, but a harsh one steers them away. Don't be full of yourself. Even if you're the wisest person on earth, don't start saying it. There's an expression that says, if you walk in a bakery shop and a guy starts messing with you and he's like, oh, you want this sandwich? Act and behave. And when I say act, I don't mean like, don't fake it, but act and behave like you can't afford the sandwich, and let the person who was mocking you realize that you own the bakery. Be humble. James 1-5. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given to him. A more modern and dirty translation is, God gives wisdom to anybody who asks of him equally, and he takes delight in giving it to him. Yet, Ecclesiastes 1:18, for in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. Just like anything, you have to know that you want it. You have to be careful to want it. You guys have ever heard the saying of, I asked God to take away any obstacles to my salvation. I asked God to take away any distractions from him, and then the next day I caught my boyfriend cheating. And then the next day, my dog died. And then the next day, 8 people blocked me out of nowhere. Because God took away those things and he answered your prayers. Just like this, if you ask God for wisdom, he will give you wisdom. But as a baby slowly learns of the corruption of the world, you will